but we're finally going to answer the most commonly asked question ever, forever, ever in the history of Vice Grip Garage.
In a world dominated by fast-paced content and constantly evolving trends, one question kept echoing through the comment sections and forums of automotive YouTube: what happened to Derek Bieri from Vice Grip Garage? For years, he was the quiet yet commanding force behind a channel that inspired millions with its humble beginnings and no-nonsense restoration videos. Yet suddenly, something changed. Videos became shorter, his presence less frequent, and the raw energy that once defined his build started to fade. The viewers noticed, the comments multiplied, and speculation ran wild. But beneath the surface of YouTube thumbnails and repair jobs lay a story far more profound than anyone imagined. A story built not just on rusted cars and vice grips, but on personal sacrifice, burnout, and the emotional toll of building something from nothing. This is not just the tale of a mechanic with a camera, it's the story of a man who gave everything to his dream, only to nearly lose himself in the process. What began as a garage project in the frozen corners of Minnesota became a nationwide brand, a community, and a burden. And for Derek Bieri, staying true to his roots meant walking a tightrope between passion and pressure, between authenticity and expectation. This video takes you behind the viral clips, beneath the grease-stained hands, and into the heart of a man whose dream nearly cost him everything. Because when the cameras stopped rolling, the real story began. And it's one that will leave you questioning what it truly takes to succeed in the age of internet fame. In a time when viral fame can vanish overnight, one creator has quietly remained a mystery to millions. Derek Bieri, the face behind Vice Grip Garage, once a staple on the screens of gearheads and DIY dreamers alike, Derek's videos were more than entertainment. They were raw slices of Americana, built on elbow grease, stubborn grit, and authenticity. Yet something changed. His uploads slowed, the content grew shorter. Fans began to ask, why did Derek disappear? The man who could revive a rusted frame with little more than vice grips and sheer will seemed to retreat from the spotlight he never sought in the first place. Rumors circulated, theories piled up, and YouTube's relentless algorithm moved on. But behind that fade from fame lies a deeper, more human story. This is not about ratings or sponsorships. This is about a man whose passion collided head-on with pressure, whose quiet nature was drowned by digital demands, and whose love for machines masked a growing exhaustion. This is the unfiltered, untold journey of Derek Bieri, the man who refused to trade his truth for views, who built a digital empire with honesty, and who nearly burned out under the weight of his own success. If you've ever wondered what really happened to the man with the grease-stained hands and the heart full of horsepower, stay tuned, because what you're about to hear isn't just shocking, it's the story no algorithm could ever truly capture. Long before Vice Grip Garage became a household name among automotive YouTubers, Derek Bieri's story began in the frozen silence of Minnew, North Dakota, a place where the wind whispered harder than people talked, and resilience wasn't an option. It was a requirement. Born on May 16, 1964, Derek was raised in a world defined by survival, not spectacle. There were no paved paths to glory or bright lights promising fame, just acres of icy farmland, rusted machinery, and an unspoken lesson carved into every colliest hand: if it's broken, you fix it. If you can't fix it, you figure out how. While other boys chased footballs in suburban parks, Derek was chasing bolts and watching his family squeeze every drop of utility out of aging tractors and broken down trucks. In that world, machines weren't hobbies, they were lifelines. It wasn't about passion back then. It was about making sure the tractor ran so the family could eat. Each winter morning was baptized by cold engines and frigid metal, and every repair taught more than schoolbooks ever could. Derek's father wasn't the type to say much, but every shared silence over a rusted carburetor became its own language. His mother stretched meals and held the family together with quiet strength, never once complaining about the burdens she bore. In the absence of friends, video games, or noise, young Derek found companionship in gears and grease. While loneliness crept into the bones of some kids, Derek forged companionship with the machines that waited in stillness, whispering their stories in cracked dashboards and sun-bleached vinyl seats. He wasn't just learning how engines worked, he was learning how to endure. That silence, the kind that sits with you long after the chores are done, became the bedrock of a mindset that would one day power a global audience. And though no one in Minnew would have ever guessed it, the boy who fixed tractors with duct tape and a prayer would one day inspire millions, not with flash, but with honesty. Minnesota garages, where his breath fogged up the lens and every bolt turned was accompanied by a muffled curse, quickly grew into a viral phenomenon. Millions subscribed, not for flashy edits or influencer theatrics, but for the grounded honesty Derek brought to the table. He wasn't selling dreams, he was showing the dirt, the rust, the setbacks, and how to keep going anyway. But as the view count grew, so did the demands. Suddenly Derek wasn't just a guy with a camera and a socket wrench, he was a content machine expected to deliver new videos, bigger builds, more drama, better lighting, and tighter edits. Comments flooded in with feedback, some encouraging, others cutting, critiques on pacing, jokes, audio, and even how he spoke. The more he tried to stay real, the more the internet pulled him toward trends and viral traps he never cared for. The platform demanded thumbnails, titles, controversy, and constant output. Sponsors appeared, bringing both opportunity and deadlines. What was once a creative outlet started to feel like a production line with no off switch. Derek faced the choice: change the way he worked and risk becoming something he wasn't, or dig in his heels and do it the hard way. He chose the latter, but it came at a cost. While others faked conflict for clicks, Derek refused to dramatize builds or stage breakdowns. He kept it raw, which meant the pressure doubled. He had to be real, entertaining, and consistent, all without faking it, and though he rarely said it out loud, the weight began to show. Viewers could feel something shifting in the background, a tension growing behind the scenes. Derek was fighting a battle to remain himself in an online world that rewards the opposite, and that battle would only get harder. What viewers didn't see behind the signature beard and quick wit was a man being quietly crushed by the very thing he had built. The signs were subtle at first: slower uploads, less energy on camera, occasional silences that lingered just a beat too long, but soon they became impossible to ignore. Derek Bieri was burning out, and it was the kind of burnout no wrench could fix. He wasn't just filming counter restorations, he was filming editing, scripting, negotiating with sponsors, managing the business, maintaining the family, and chasing an algorithm that never sleeps. Nights turned into mornings, meals were missed, and moments of silence became rare luxuries. On live streams, fans noticed the change: eyes heavier, smile warier, voice trailing off mid-sentence before snapping back with forced energy. Behind every joke was a man clinging to the thing he loved before it consumed him. And yet, he kept going. Why? Because people were waiting. Because he didn't want to disappoint the audience that believed in him. Because sponsors had expectations. Because the machine he built now demanded he feed it. But passion cannot thrive without rest. The cars may have roared back to life, but Derek was running on empty. The irony was cruel. The more successful he became, the further he drifted from the peace that inspired him. Even as he worked through injuries, edited while half asleep, and filmed until dawn, he smiled for the camera, not because he was fine, but because he believed the mission still mattered. He wasn't chasing views, he was trying to hold on to meaning, and though burnout rarely announces itself with a bang, it seeps in slowly, draining color from the things you love until you're left wondering how something so beautiful became so heavy. Derek didn't say the word out loud, but his silence screamed it. Before Vice Grip Garage ever found an audience, Derek Bieri found a partner, Jessica, the woman who would stand by him through every upshift and breakdown. They married in 2008, long before YouTube fame or sponsorships were even ideas, building a life on modesty, values, and shared grit. As the channel exploded, their quiet home life was quickly invaded by something they hadn't anticipated: an audience. The place that had once been a refuge from the chaos slowly became part of the content machine. Fans wanted more behind the scenes, more family time, more of Derek's personal life, and with each request came a choice: share more or protect what matters. Derek chose the latter. He grew increasingly cautious about showing his children on camera, eventually pulling them out of the spotlight entirely. Their names vanished from videos, their presence, once charmingly authentic, faded. Because Derek had seen what the internet could become: the dark side of viral fame, where admiration curdles into obsession and curiosity becomes intrusion. He knew that for every well-meaning comment, there might be one that crossed the line. So he made the hard choice not to give the audience everything. Jessica, ever strong and steady, remained his anchor, helping him navigate the chaos while keeping their family grounded. But that didn't erase the guilt. As views climbed, Derek began to fear he was sacrificing moments that mattered most. Bedtime stories, quiet dinners, and milestones that don't go viral. He was building something for his family, but in the process he worried he might be building it without. That tension, that fear of missing the very life he was trying to support, hung heavy in every decision. And yet his choice to protect his family, even at the cost of content, may be the bravest thing he's ever done. In a world where everything is content, Derek Bieri drew a line, and he did it not for clicks, but for love. Change is never easy, especially when it means saying goodbye to the place that made you who you are. For Derek Bieri, Minnesota wasn't just a home, it was history. Every dented fender, snow-covered morning, and busted knuckle told a story. It was where Vice Grip Garage was born, where the cold breath in the garage became part of the intro, and where long nights turned into the channel's early magic. But the space grew too small, the winters too brutal, and the burnout too loud to ignore. So Derek packed up his family, his tools, and decades of memories and made the hardest decision of his career. He left. Tennessee was the destination, but the journey was marked with grief. To move meant selling off parts of his beloved car collection. Machines that held stories no one had ever heard. Vehicles that would never see a thumbnail, but carried pieces of his soul. Some left quietly, no farewell video, no goodbye montage, just a handshake, a nod, and a silence that said more than words ever could. The new garage brought warmer weather and more filming opportunities, but it also came with unfamiliar roads and homesickness that couldn't be filmed. Derek had to start over. New parts, new team, new rhythm. He traded snow for sun, but he never let go of the grit Minnesota taught him. And though the geography changed, the mission didn't. He wasn't chasing comfort, he was chasing balance. Tennessee gave him room to breathe, but it didn't erase the weight of what was left behind. In each new project, in every bolt turned, the spirit of Minnesota remains, because no matter where the garage sits, the heart of Vice Grip Garage still beats to the rhythm of those early frozen nights, and the sacrifices made to keep moving forward. For a man like Derek Bieri, tools are not just instruments, they are sacred. Each socket wrench, each carburetor, each battered pair of vice grips carries with it a memory, a story, a battle fought and won under the hood. So when Derek moved his life and his legacy from Minnesota to Tennessee, he didn't just bring boxes, he brought relics of a life's work. But amid the chaos of the relocation and the adrenaline of a new beginning, something happened that cut deeper than rusted bolts or failed builds. His garage was broken into. It wasn't just a loss of property, it was a violation of trust. Someone had entered the sanctuary he had painstakingly built, rifled through his legacy, and stolen not only rare tools, like a vintage snap-on torque wrench and a brand new Holley carburetor, but also a sense of safety that could never be replaced. Derek didn't rage, he didn't accuse. He sat calmly in front of his camera, the same way he always had, and told his audience what had happened, with disappointment, not drama. His fans responded immediately, flooding his comments with support, stories of their own losses, and even offers to replace the stolen tool. Wasn't the material that mattered, it was the meaning. For mechanics, tools are extensions of the hand and heart, and losing one is like losing a piece of yourself. Derek tightened security, installed cameras, and tried to move on, but something had changed. The wide-open freedom of the garage was now shadowed by caution, and though he kept creating, a layer of vigilance clung to every project. That theft didn't just take tools, it took peace. It reminded him, and his community, that not everyone who watches respects what they see. Still, Derek stood firm, rebuilding not only his shop, but the trust shaken by that moment. In a world where so much is fake, his quiet resilience reminded fans that even in loss, integrity matters more than rage. Because real builders don't just fix cars, they rebuild after being broken themselves. As Vice Grip Garage continued to climb in popularity, with millions of viewers drawn to Derek Bieri's no-nonsense approach and heartfelt repairs, a new challenge began to emerge, not from outside, but from within his own audience. The same fans who once praised his gritty authenticity and laughed along with his mishaps began to change. Some missed the raw early videos, others complained the editing was off, that the builds felt repetitive, or that the jokes weren't as sharp. And then came the harsher accusations, claims that he was selling out, that the soul of the channel had dimmed, that the man who once fixed cars in the snow was now too polished, too scripted, too commercial. For Derek, a man who had poured himself body, soul, and schedule into every frame, it hit hard. These weren't just comments, they were questions about his purpose, his process, his identity. The irony was painful. The better the content got in quality, the more disconnected some viewers became. But Derek didn't fold. He listened, yes, but he didn't chase approval. He refused to stage fake drama or clickbait titles. He doubled doubled down on what made the channel special: truth. He kept filming builds that failed before they succeeded. He kept showing the long nights, the cursing under breath, the grease-stained hands that proved he was still in the trenches. He reminded his audience that this wasn't a show, it was his life. And while the algorithm may favor exaggeration and controversy, Derek stuck to what he knew: real stories, real effort, real people. In time, those who stayed saw clearly. The channel hadn't changed, it had grown. And so had Derek. Criticism didn't break him, it clarified him. Because in a world that rewards shortcuts and spectacle, staying honest is the hardest thing to do. And Derek Bieri never set out to entertain. He set out to inspire, and he still does. One rebuilt engine, one tough comment, and one truthful video at a time. When the history of YouTube's golden age of creators is written, Derek Bieri's name may not trend at the top, and his channel might not be the flashiest, but his legacy will endure longer than most. Because while others chased clout, he chased meaning. While others staged breakdowns, he filmed the real ones, both mechanical and emotional. The story of Vice Grip Garage is not about going viral, it's about going the distance. Through freezing nights in Minnesota barns, through burnout that left his hands trembling, through theft, criticism, and the relentless pull of the algorithm, Derek stayed grounded. He stayed real, and in doing so, he built more than a fan base. He built a movement, one that reminds people it's okay to fail, okay to try, okay to fix things instead of replacing them. His greatest build wasn't a Camaro or a rusted Ford. It was trust. The trust of millions who saw themselves in him. The dad working late in his shed. The kid with a dream and a broken engine. The family that just needed to see someone tell the truth. Derek gave them that. And in a time when influencers are manufactured and content is disposable, he stood for something more. He reminded us that the grind is sacred, that grit matters, and that even in silence, a well-placed wrench can speak volumes. So, if you've ever wondered what really happened to Derek Bieri, know this: he didn't disappear. He simply chose purpose over pressure and peace over popularity. He's still turning wrenches, still raising his kids, still fixing what's broken, one bolt at a time, and in doing so, he's proving something that no trending tab ever could: true grit never fades.